Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Empire of Debate. Tonight, we are discussing the carnivore diet and its relation to veganism. With me tonight, we have two speakers, Yang and Comrade Kohga. Comrade Kohga is representing the vegan position, while Yang is representing the carnivore diet position. They are going to be discussing the nutrition, health benefits, and many other related factors. And we will begin with Comrade Kohga's 10-minute opening statement. The floor is yours for the taking.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Koga, and I'm going to be arguing on the side of veganism today. So, a lot is often said about and against vegans, with one of the most common objections to veganism being that vegans are not able to get adequate nutrition solely through plant-based means. Today, I intend to dispel this myth once and for all. The scientific consensus is clear. A well-planned vegan diet can absolutely meet all of one's nutritional needs. Not only that, there is abundant evidence that a plant-based diet is exceptionally more healthy than most other diets, especially the carnivore diet. This discussion will not focus on ideology or ethics, will be strictly focused on the evidence and nutritional science. I'd like to begin by citing the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, who say appropriately planned vegetarian and vegan diets are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in prevention and treatment of certain diseases. This position is echoed by the British Dietetic Association, the Harvard School of Public Health, Dietitians of Canada, among many other organizations. And to be clear, these are professional, evidence-based institutions, not advocacy groups. Through supplementation and fortified foods, there isn't a single nutrient that cannot be obtained in adequate amounts through plant-based means. Vitamin B12, vitamin D, omega-3s, carnosine, iron, all are commonly cited substances that must be planned for in a vegan diet. Just as omnivores must plan around cholesterol, saturated fats, or fiber deficiency, without supplementation, fortified foods and any number of delicious plant-based foods, or with supplementation, fortified foods and any number of delicious plant-based foods, planning around these challenges is remarkably easy. Now, a common objection is that if a diet requires supplementation, it must be inadequate. This is a false dichotomy. Practically all modern diets rely on supplementation, enrichment, and fortification to maintain health. Cereals, bread, and rice are enriched with iron, folate, and B vitamins. Dairy milk, orange juice, often fortified with vitamin D and calcium. There's a plethora of examples. Most people regularly consume such foods. This has been common practice since the 1920s in order to help prevent nutrient deficiencies that can become common due to areas with scarce staple foods or restrictive regional soil conditions. Multiple countries, including Argentina, the Philippines, the UK, the United States, and more, have laws on the books mandating fortification of certain foods in order to address nationwide deficiencies. No credible nutrition body rejects a diet for needing supplementation. What matters is whether all nutrient needs are met, and with simple planning for a plant-based diet, they are. Next, I'd like to focus on how a plant-based diet is not only adequate, but in many ways is superior to a carnivore diet. Dozens of studies across several decades consistently show that a vegan diet greatly improves cardiovascular health, reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes, obesity, and many cancers. Studies by Stanford Medicine, the National Institute of Health, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the American Heart Association, and the British Heart Foundation, and many more all agree on this. It is abundantly clear that a plant-based diet leads to superior heart health, blood sugar management, and reduced risk of certain cancers. Up to a 25 to 30% decreased risk in heart disease, 30 to 35% reduction in diabetes risk, improved insulin sensitivity, 10 to 15% reduction in overall incidences of cancer, consistently lower BMI and hypertension rates, improved gut microbiome balance. The evidence is clear that scientific consensus agrees a well-planned plant-based diet is not only nutritionally adequate, but optimizes human health against the leading causes of death in the developed world. We've seen that every essential nutrient can be obtained without animal products. The science is unified, the health benefits are well documented, and supplementation is a responsible modern tool, not a flaw. If my opponent wants to claim that a balanced vegan diet can't meet human needs, they must produce credible evidence of deficiency among vegans who plan properly, supplement as needed, and follow medical guidelines. They won't find it. It's clear that a well-planned plant-based diet is nutritionally complete. Now let's examine the carnivore diet. This diet eliminates all plant foods and consists entirely of meat, fish, and sometimes eggs and dairy. This means zero dietary fiber, vitamin C, phytonutrients, plant antioxidants. There are no long-term, large clinical trials that support its safety or health benefits, unlike the vegan diet, which has decades of peer-reviewed research and the support of dozens of major health and nutrition organizations. As I've argued, supplementation is a valid way to balance a diet, but with a strict carnivore diet, the supplementation needs are immense. And by relying on supplements, my opponent would concede that one must rely on some plant-based solutions to meet these needs. Many of the major medical and dietary institutions I previously mentioned have weighed in on the carnivore diet as well, and the consensus is clear here as well. The risks outweigh the benefits, and the benefits are far fewer and less consequential than the risks. Animal fat is mostly saturated fats, the unhealthiest kind, which raises your LDL cholesterol, the bad kind of cholesterol, the main contributing factor to heart disease. Fiber deficiency, as a truly all-meat diet lacks fiber entirely, also leads to digestive issues, constipation, and in the long term, an increased risk of colon cancer. This is a disadvantage of all keto diets, but is especially prevalent in an all-carnivore diet. It's accompanied by an increased risk of gout, kidney stones, and osteoporosis. The excessively high protein intake can lead to impaired kidney function. Other nutrients missing from this diet include thiamine, magnesium, calcium, vitamin C, vitamin E, iron, folate, iodine, potassium, and phytonutrients, which are naturally occurring in plants and are also antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, and immune system boosters, all absent from a carnivore diet. All of these factors combined make this diet a microbiome disaster and greatly increase long-term disease risk. The World Health Organization classifies processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogenic, which means that there is the same amount of evidence that it causes cancer as there is for cigarettes. Red meat is a Group 2A probable carcinogen. The disrupted microbiome is associated with inflammation, depression, immune dysregulation, and an increased risk of metabolic diseases. Evidence shows that a true carnivore diet cripples one's microbiome. Finally, to look at the scientific literature, I'd like to reiterate that there are no long-term clinical trials, peer-reviewed, on the carnivore diet. No reputable medical organization endorses it, and the only long-term data we do have on high-meat, low-carb, or ketogenic diets shows higher mortality, higher cardiovascular disease. Most evidence proponents turn to is anecdotal, not peer-reviewed, and based on vibes rather than actual science. Carnivore diets are an untested, extreme experiment with strong theoretical risks and no demonstrated long-term safety. A well-planned plant-based diet, on the other hand, has dozens of large-scale, peer-reviewed studies, wide and complete nutritional coverage, a much healthier microbiome, lower risks of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, hypertension, and more. My position is backed by decades of research and dietetic consensus. The carnivore diet is like running your car on dirty, low-quality fuel and claiming that it's fine because it starts today, while ignoring that you're wrecking your engine over time. No major nutrition or medical organization endorses the carnivore diet. All endorse a well-planned diet, plant-based diet, as a safe and beneficial option. The evidence overwhelmingly shows that the carnivore diet endangers long-term health, and the burden of proof lies on those rejecting more than a century of nutritional science. I rest my case.
Thank you for that opening statement. And now we go to Yang for his 10-minute opening statement. The floor is yours for the taking.
Hello, so yeah, I'm Yang. Was in the last debate already, but I'm here again. So today I will defend the carnivore diet against the vegan diet. There are many things. I didn't take notes, sadly. I should have probably done that. But there were many things you said where I already have to disagree with, and I will get into some of those. First of all, you claimed that under a carnivore diet, you cannot get vitamin C from meat, which is just wrong. Liver has vitamin C, kidney has vitamin C, fresh raw muscle meat has vitamin C. You get it from fish eggs, from raw fish, from certain seafoods. You can get vitamin C for many food sources that have nothing to do with a vegan or vegetarian diet. Perfectly normal. It's not a problem. You don't even need supplements for that. And that completely ignores the fact that under a carnivore diet, you really need far less vitamin C. It's more of a thing you need in large quantities when you are on a vegan or vegetarian diet. Now, another thing I would like to talk about is that among vegans, the rate of depression and anxiety is very high. It's significantly higher than among omnivores, and then that has something to do with the prevalence of various deficiencies, as well as intestinal issues. Like one thing that is common or can happen under a high fiber diet, for example, is anal bleeding. It's also that you get bloating and other issues around that entire tract, and that is for a high fiber diet. Now, under a carnivore diet, you really do not need fiber. Like fiber, that you need fiber for your intestines is incredibly wrong. There's a very small scale study. I know it's small scale, but it's at least a clinical trial where they analyzed how people that have gastrointestinal issues react to a high, mid, and low fiber diet, or no, low and no fiber diet. That's what they tested, and they found out consistently that a less fiber, the better your intestinal issues get. If you cut out the fiber entirely, the all symptoms disappear. The problem is essentially gone. You really don't need fiber. Now, when you're on a carnivore diet, what your microbiome will do is simply switch over to the consumption of, for example, mucus, as well as amino acids and something else. I need to look in my PDF for that. But generally speaking, you can absolutely live without fiber. The human body does not need fiber. Fiber, on the contrary, cannot be properly digested and causes problems in your intestines, because we are not herbivores. A herbivore looks significantly different from a carnivore or an omnivore. We see that when we look at, for example, horses, cows, or gorillas, they have very, very large guts. They're very fat, not in the sense of having a lot of fat, but in the sense of having large intestines, so that they can digest all of the fiber and the cellulose that they consume properly and actually utilize it. Humans cannot utilize it because humans are not evolved for that. Humans in many parts of the world have evolved to adapt to climates that partly over the year do not have provided any food with significantly high protein and vitamin levels sufficient enough for them to survive. For example, during winter, especially during the caveman phase, where many plants, many fruits and roots, etc., were incredibly underdeveloped. They were very, very minor. They provided minor nutrients and such, and the kind of fruits and the kinds of vegetables we have today, even though they are still very bad, are significantly better than what we had back then. Now, another problem of a vegan diet, for example, would be that with a lack of supplementation. Yes, you can take supplements. However, and that is a huge problem of vegan diets in general, all of these foods have all kinds of different components that will eventually reduce your absorption rate significantly of these vitamins, of these proteins, of all of this, essentially. Wheat, for example, is a huge problem. Corn as well, but also lettuce. cabbages, carrots. There are also tons of carcinogens in plant foods that cause all kinds of problems and can actually cause cancer. I know you brought up a bunch of large institutions like the American Heart Association that say, oh, well, red meat causes cancer. We can go into these kind of studies later on. But even the WHO, by the way, states that there is insufficient ground to actually claim that. They themselves say that. There is this myth that it does cause it, but it's not real. We can go into that. I would like to go into a Harvard survey among carnivores that have been on a carnivore diet for more than a year. Minimum to even more. They asked like 2,000 individuals, over 2,000 individuals that were on a carnivore diet for significant amounts of time, and consistently we see obesity dropping to 93 among 93% of people. Underweight issues are resolved among 80% of people. Yes, gastrointestinal issues resolved 97% of the time. Diabetes and insulin resistance resolved or significantly reduced among 98% of the people asked, and many, 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 many other issues that they have asked for. And to say that a carnivore diet doesn't work, even though it is quite literally what humans have been evolved to, and we see that, like, we can look at the bone structures that, from observations and such, that as our brain grew, our intestines shrunk, and that is because our brain needs a lot of protein, and you do not get that during caveman times from plants. It literally, you can't. Supplements didn't exist back then. However, meat existed, and meat was available pretty much year round, and there you have what you need. So yeah, I haven't really prepared much of a long speech, so I'm pretty much done already.
All right. And with 2 minutes to spare. All right, so now we are going into the open dialogue. You two can now speak freely and dialectically for the next 45 minutes. I will only intervene and maybe get into 2 or 3 minute intervals if things get heated, but otherwise, have fun. The timer begins now.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I want to address. As far as vitamin C, you are correct, and if I said that if you couldn't get it through meat, I misspoke. But the rates of vitamin C in meat, in the liver and kidney, like you said, are far lower, and you would still
Yeah,
be deficient if
I,
that's all
I,
you relied.
I know it's lower, but you don't need significant amounts of vitamin C on a carnivore diet. You really don't. And besides that,
Again, this
carnivores
goes
do
back to
eat.
my analogy. You're running your car on low quality oil and saying it's fine because it starts today, while ignoring the long
Oh,
term
no, no,
risks.
no,
So
no.
sure, you can
Why would you need
survive.
a No, no, and it's not survive. You don't need that because you're not like, vitamin C is used for very particular cases that fall completely away when you're on a carnivore diet.
Like what? And how does a carnivore diet make up for it?
So first of all, you do get vitamin C. I said that already. So they don't need as much because because they synthesize. Oh, wait a second. I need to formulate them in my head correct.
I can actually concede vitamin C. I'm not, even with vitamin C, if you can get that, you're still lacking thiamine,
Okay.
magnesium, calcium, vitamin E, iron, folate, iodine, potassium, phytonutrients. You're also getting a lot higher cholesterol. So, like, sure, you can have vitamin C. You're still there's dozens of other nutrients that you're still going to be deficient in without supplementation.
Vitamin E. You
Do you
get that
think it'd
from
be
egg
valuable
yolk,
to go
and
and nitpick
you
every
get that
single one
from
of them?
wait.
You can do that.
Vitamin E you also get from eggs, from liver, from fatty fish, etc., etc.
Okay, so you do
What
eat
was the other thing you said?
I said a lot of different things. Let me pull it back up.
Yeah, because you can't just
Thiamine.
name a bunch of things and then expect me.
Mhm.
Uh,
Thiamine.
no. What?
Thiamine.
Oh, sorry.
Thiamin. That's the first one I have listed. Magnesium, calcium,
Calcium.
iron, folate. Now, if you're changing to that, you also not just meat, but milk and eggs too. That can
Yeah,
handle
of
some of
course.
these, but
No,
still
no,
is
no, no,
not
no,
going
no.
to.
Like milk and eggs, obviously. That is a part of a carnivore diet.
Okay,
And
different people
magnesium you
have different
also get from beef, fish, eggs, liver. You name all these things, but you can actually get them on a carnivore diet. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm saying you are going to be deficient in these things because there are not
Okay,
sufficient
wait. Okay, deficiency, that is a thing we can discuss. But do you have any evidence for that you're actually deficient in it? Because I don't see them.
Evidence for the deficiencies in carnivore diets.
Huh? Again?
You're looking for evidence of deficiencies in the carnivore diet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Here is a National Institute of Health study that I can put here for you.
And for the record, if you have sources that you want us to share, they will be posted into the YouTube description, and feel free to put them into the chat.
Yeah, I'll just put it into the chat so I can see it.
Okay, tossed it in general. There you go.
What channel? I can see it. Oh, you post it in general. Okay, in that
Mm-hmm.
channel. Yeah.
As it says, the carnivore diet may offer benefits for managing certain chronic conditions. Whether these metabolic contexts from consuming such a diet facilitates a lower requirement of certain nutrients, or whether it poses risks of micronutrient inadequacies, remains to be determined. Tailored nutritional guidance and supplementation strategies are recommended to ensure careful consideration of micronutrient intake to prevent deficiency. The carnivore diet.
Here's a long. Okay, here's the full thing.
It fell short in thiamine, magnesium, calcium, vitamin C, and in iron, folate, iodine, and potassium. This is the study where I got that little list from. Not to say that you cannot get these things, but studies done on carnivores, people who have this diet, they're few and far between, and they're small, and they're not long term, but the evidence that we do have shows deficiencies across the board.
Okay.
And if you're going to say that you can supplement these kinds of things, then you're going to have to concede that you do rely on some plant-based solutions to your needs.
But okay, so you can get these things from meat, from liver, from eggs, and such.
But not
So
in
we have
sufficient
established that
amounts.
you can.
And
Yes, you have found a study that said I need to look into the study deeper. I can't do that like now in the debate. Would be take way too long. But yeah,
this is just
generally
one. I can
speaking,
send you several more if you want.
okay, yeah, I can also look into those. I don't care. Besides the point, but you can those. So I can give you a bunch of studies that show the exact same problem with vegan diets, where they are deficient on various things and have severe problems. Okay, like severe problems. We're talking
All of
about
those needs
depression. We're
can
talking
be
about
met through
anxiety.
supplementation.
But, okay, wait. So these are deficiency studies. They're not actual outcome studies. So deficiency and outcome are two different things. If the recommendations and the expectations set by, for example, the WHO or the FDA, of if these recommendations are even correct, can be negotiated, because we're not even sure about that, because the WHO says a lot of things, and a lot of things aren't actually looking that good. A good example of that would be their salt recommendations, how much salt you should actually consume per day, and it's about half of what you should actually consume, because the WHO guidelines are not good at that, not at all. So if you would follow the WHO guidelines on salt, for example, you would be significantly deficient, significantly.
Okay.
You have
you can
higher
disregard the
risk.
WHO entirely, and you still have
No,
to contend
no,
with
no, 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 no.
schedule,
I'm not
output,
discarding the
channel.
whole HRA. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that just because you found a study that claims a deficiency based on what it observed does not prove that it actually leads to bad outcomes, because we haven't even established yet that that is actually a deficiency.
Okay, so if you're going to
Do
make
you
the
have the
counterclaim,
outcome
you
study?
have your evidence.
Huh?
If you're going to say that the study that I provided is false, you're going to have to explain why. You can't just hand wave it away.
No. I'm not saying that it's false. I'm saying that the data is not sufficient. You haven't actually proven that it actually leads to negative outcomes yet.
what these deficiencies
Do you have a
lead to.
study? Do you have a study that, for example, proves people on a carnivore diet are of higher risk of cancer, higher risk of diabetes, higher risk of whatever you want?
That study does cover that because it explicitly says that carnivore diets greatly, and most keto diets, not even just the strict carnivore diets, but this is a known disadvantage of all keto diets, that they raise your LDL cholesterol, which is the number one contributing factor to heart disease. So just because, so if you're wanting a specific study that specifically says the carnivore diet leads to higher heart disease rates, you get a study that says it across the board increases LDL cholesterol rates, that is the exact same thing. As your LDL cholesterol rates go up, cardiovascular disease rates go up. This is a known fact. I can find you hundreds, probably, studies linking LDL
Wait.
cholesterol
A high
higher cardiovascular disease.
cholesterol rate. A high cholesterol rate. One of the major studies that claim that that set the recommendations by the WHO and such gave actually calcium deficient rats cholesterol, and that is a huge problem. So calcium, if you have a low rate, if you have calcium deficiency, yes, you will get into heart disease problems. However, carnivores aren't actually calcium deficient. You get a lot of calcium.
I would have to see something saying that somehow adding calcium cancels out the risks associated with higher LDL cholesterol. Because I just looked it up and I'm not seeing anything like that. And in fact, it says the opposite. They can help mitigate it to a certain extent.
I have a study here, and I can post it also in here. And that shows beef meat promotion of methotrexate, I'm sorry, my German, induced colorectal carcinogenous biomarkers are suppressed by dietary calcium.
Colorectal carcinogenesis is colon cancer.
Yes. So, in this study, that's one of the major studies that found out that yes, calcium deficient will lead to that. However, if the rats are not calcium deficient, that the rodents that they tested in the study, then it doesn't happen. Then it doesn't increase the risk of cancer. That was
That's not what this study says.
And that's what
says,
actually it is in the.
It says that it can reduce the danger to a certain extent.
Okay.
But
I'm reading from the study. We chose to initiate all rats with carcinogen since the study was designed to show dietary promotion and because a 2.5% HB diet does not initiate ACF. That's what's standing in that study. You can look it up. That sentence. Exactly.
I'm looking at the study now.
The rats were given controlled diet before being injected intraperitoneally. I'm sorry,
it sounds like you don't even know what you're reading.
It's in the study.
Yeah, but you don't know what these words mean.
I'm sorry, I'm German and I can probably pronounce everything. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, way, it's very fair.
Just like you said for one or two of the studies that you brought up and brought up issues with, as far as the ones that support my side, you have found one study from, I don't know who these people are, your one study against dozens of major medical and dietetic associations.
That study is actually in a WHO report on the matter, where they themselves say that there is no sufficient evidence to support that meat actually causes cancer.
That is just simply incorrect.
No, that's actually in a WHO report. It's not even old.
They classify processed meat as group 1 carcinogen on the same level as cigarettes. And red meat as a group 2A, probable carcinogen.
And that's actually not correct.
And there's it's you versus the World Health Organization. Is that your argument?
No, the World Health Organization says that themselves. if you actually read the report. And we need
Your
to
study doesn't say what you think it does. That's my point.
Okay, but it does. Okay, where does it not say that?
The audience might have to take a look and decide for themselves, because the evidence is abundantly clear that higher LDL cholesterol rates increase risk of cardiovascular disease, and increased calcium intake may lower that risk a little bit, but do not eliminate the increased risk. We know this.
But that's not what the study says.
You are still
The
going
study
up against
literally says
not
you
only
have
just the
to
World
have.
Health Organization,
No, the
all
World
these
Health
other Harvard,
Organization.
Stanford, medical, health, and dietetic organizations for the last century, over a century, have consistently found that the plant-based diet reduces these risks, objectively reduces these risks. Your evidence is shaky at best with one or two studies. Mine is decades of established institutions doing peer-reviewed studies.
Okay, yeah,
Massive
established institutions
meta-analyses of different studies.
that are funded and are lobbied by organizations that actually sell the goods.
Is your
like
argument
wheat and
conspiracy
such.
now? Is that your
No,
argument?
it's not. No, it's not.
That these people are pushing this for some reason? There's some sort of alternate agenda of why they're doing this?
Well, I'm saying that there is
I hope
definitely
that's not where you're
incentive.
taking the conversation.
There's an incentive structure here, of course. But you don't even engage with what I'm saying.
There's not a whole lot to engage with. What would you like me to engage with that I haven't?
I would need to find a WHO report where they themselves say that there's insufficient evidence for it.
The evidence that you turned to, like particularly in your opening statement, you admitted that this was the study that you mentioned about the self-reported people reporting their benefits on this diet. There's only 2,000 people, and it was a self-reporting survey. Whereas the studies that I'm referencing are long-term, years-long, with tens of thousands of people going into doctors' offices and getting their medical metrics checked. Not just a self-reporting survey. You mentioned that in the Ice Age we were completely reliant on meat. That is also incorrect. We have lots of evidence that even humans in the Ice Age ate things like tubers, nuts, other plants, things like that.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying
Also,
that. But
we don't live
no,
in
wait.
caveman
I never
times.
claimed that humans never ate any vegetables or such. I'm saying that they generally relied on meat because there was no sufficient protein from those vegetables and the fruits that existed back then.
Sure.
Why
And
are
the
you denying
existing
that?
evidence would indicate that those people probably died early to cardiovascular disease.
Except that there is no proper evidence for that.
We have evidence that that's how it affects humans today. Are you saying that in caveman times they were physiologically different to the extent that
No.
that would be
No.
different? That
I'm
LDL
not saying
cholesterol would increase their
that
rates?
was significantly different from today. I'm not saying that today people dying of red meat and such. You have to consider the full picture. Like lots of these studies that claim that meat causes cancer are not about actual carnivores. They're actually looking at a large group of people that consume mostly omnivorous, and there are other
Yeah,
things that
people
they
with a
consume
much more
may
varied
cause
diet
cancer.
also have these issues. So if you restrict that
Yes,
diet even
they
further,
have
you're
the
going to
primary
have
issue.
even more issues.
Do you have a study that proves that people that have that are on a carnivore diet that they die of cancer on to a significantly higher rate? Not evidence based on blood cholesterol and such. I'm talking about a study that proves that or that shows that people on a carnivore diet have a higher risk of cancer. Do you have that? Or that they have
You
higher rates of
are,
cancer?
again, the LDL cholesterol does show a higher increased risk of cancer. It is a 1-to-1 correlation.
Wait. Does it show that in the study that people then actually have it among carnivores, only carnivores? That's what I'm talking about, not omnivores. I don't care about the omnivores. They eat with their meat all kinds of other things. They put it in vegetable oil. They eat it as hot dogs with bread around it. I don't care about that. They have high carbohydrate intakes. Now, that is a whole different thing. On a low-carb diet, you don't have that. And I'm asking you, is someone who is on a carnivore diet, do these people actually have cancer? Yes or no? Is there a study on that?
I don't know if there is. That's one of the problems with your position, is that there is
Precisely.
next to no peer-reviewed long-term clinical trials about the effects of this thing. But we can see how it affects our nutrient levels, and we know what those deficiencies and changes in nutrient levels will do in the long term. So while there may not be a long-term study that is peer-reviewed and all that stuff about carnivores in particular and them getting more cancer, because this is a relatively recent thing, this whole like carnivore diet thing, it's not that hasn't been a thing for very long. So
I know.
what you're pointing to is actually the lack of scholarship on your position. That doesn't strengthen
I
your
know.
position.
Okay. No. Okay. First of all, it does, because you don't have the study that I'm asking for, and I don't even say that's your fault or something. I know that there is way too little research, and I would like myself that there would be more research. But you and I must agree on the fact that for now we don't know that. Now let me get into how glucose in a carbohydrate and high carbs diet is actually broken down in the body, because I think this is very important in this regard. So when you eat carbohydrates, it is broken down into glucose by your body through insulin. Now, if you are insulin resistant, of course, you have a problem with that, and the fat will build up in your body. And need to, how do you formulate that best? Oh shit, I don't know how to formulate that best. I should have prepared better, to be honest, in this paper. Reduce muscle mass. Okay, so glucose is mostly absorbed by your muscle. Like the muscle in your body is the biggest glucose consumer, pretty much. The less muscle you have, the less glucose is absorbed, and the more is stored in your liver, and eventually they lock into place, and that's when you actually develop insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is where we actually have a danger. On a low carb diet, you have, of course, less fat building up, and the prevalence of cancer is significantly reduced by having more muscle mass. There's a study on that too. Like every 10% increase in the muscle mass index reduces insulin resistance significantly, and eventually the prevalence of diabetes, and that also reduces the risk of having cancer. There are studies on that as well. Would you agree with that?
With which part in particular? That the studies exist?
Well, I can show you the studies, but first of all, that generally having high glucose levels, that these high glucose levels can be prevented by having more muscle mass, and for that you need a lot of protein, and the best source of protein, that is simply meat.
I can agree that higher muscle mass can decrease your risk of diabetes and assist in insulin related functions in the body.
Okay, good.
Your point about the protein and about meat being the best source of protein, debatable, because of all the other risks that come with red meat and processed meat in particular, which is what most meat these days is processed.
Yeah, you're not supposed to eat processed meat on a carnivore diet. Okay,
It really depends on what you mean by processed and where you draw the line, but either way, even if you're eating red meat, that is a known probable carcinogen.
Okay, so generally,
you can point towards
generally
more
say
muscle mass.
on a
You
carnivore,
can also,
generally,
some of the strongest and most accomplished athletes on the planet are completely plant-based as well. The idea that you cannot get sufficient muscle mass or cannot get sufficient protein from a plant-based diet is just demonstrably false.
Oh, I'm not saying you can't, absolutely can't, but it is very hard to do so. You need to be very,
It
very
is not
careful
hard to
about this. No, it actually is, because there
You
are
don't have to.
various
I
Huh?
do it every day, my friend. I promise you. It's not as
Yeah,
difficult as you
I can,
think
I
it
can,
is.
I believe you that you do that every day, but there comes other risk with it, especially long-term risk. One risk that, for example, vegans and vegetarians are very prone to have is the prevalence of depression and anxiety, and that has something to do with the intestines and developing anal bleeding, bloating, these kinds of sorts of things. That is very common, actually.
It is not very common. You are also pointing towards non-well planned out vegan diets when you point towards a study that
Oh
looks
no,
at the
even with
health.
supplements. I'm talking
I would
with
have to see that
supplements.
study, but consensus across the board is that a plant-based diet is an incredibly healthy and beneficial diet that
Okay, do you know
major medical and
oxalate?
health organizations around the world promote to their professionals and the people who follow them, that recommending this to your
Okay.
patients, the doctors is who
Mhm.
they're talking to. Recommending a
Okay.
plant-based diet to your patient will help across the board with so many different issues.
Okay. That's a lot of
Nobody
for the argument.
recommends
I
a
don't care.
carnivore diet.
I don't care. I'm asking, do you know what oxalate is?
No.
Okay, oxalate is very prevalent in black tea, celery, spinach, cashew, peanuts, and many other vegetables and fruits and such. Oxalate is an inhibitor. It essentially reduces your ability to absorb iron, zinc, these sorts of things. We have the same in wheat as well with gliadin, and in nuts, grains, and seeds, soy, etc. We have protease inhibitors. These also inhibit the ability to absorb proteins properly, and they can even have a negative impact on other foods, including supplements that you're consuming, to properly absorb these different things. Another example of that is for example, spinach. Spinach is high in iron, as we all know. However, you are actually only able to absorb roughly 2% of the iron in spinach. When we talk about beans, we have they are inhibiting the zinc absorption. In corn, that is even so prevalent that when you are eating corn with other foods that are rich in zinc, it will inhibit the absorption of the zinc in these other foods. That's how prevalent
Mhm.
these different elements in these plant foods are.
Sure. It is harder.
Yeah,
The bioavailability is what you're talking about, the absorption rate of these substances.
no,
It
I'm
is
talking
lower.
about literal inhibitors. By like
Inhibit
absorption
for
rate.
all these different reasons. Yeah, you're right. That absorption rates for these nutrients can be inhibited by these other things. But again, you can still adequately meet all of your nutritional needs without deficiencies on a well-planned plant-based diet. This argument is about whether or not the carnivore diet is superior to a well-planned vegan diet.
Um,
You were saying that
what
yes,
do you mean
it
by
can be
well
more
planned?
difficult to
How many
obtain these
people
things in that.
actually have? Uh, if it's so easy, then why are people that are still on supplement iron deficient? For women, for example, 58% of women that take iron supplements are still iron deficient during pregnancy.
Sure. There's lots of deficiencies that affect entire populations due to all kinds of things, from regional soil consistency to just the accessibility of grocery stores and fresh foods. There's all kinds of things that affect different deficiencies in different people. But a well-planned vegan diet addresses all of these.
Okay, you said that a few times, but these
Mhm.
people take the supplements, they're still deficient significantly.
Depends on which supplement you're taking. It depends on what you're eating alongside of it. There's all kinds of different things that can cause these issues like you're
Okay, but
talking
that
about. But
comes
the
with a very
argument
high
is about a
risk.
well-planned vegan diet, which does not have these problems.
Okay, so that's okay.
You can point towards people who have poor diet. You can point towards vegans who eat vegan junk food, have poor diets, and are therefore deficient and face these issues like anxiety and depression and rectal bleeding. But I've been vegan for years. I focused on my health and nutrition. I've never experienced any of those issues. I know that's
Sure,
only
but
my
we want
own
to.
experience,
Okay,
but it is also
I'm
backed
on
up
the.
by, again, dozens and dozens and dozens of studies and medical and health and nutritional organizations
Yeah,
that all
you
support.
repeat the point multiple times now. But I don't really
Mhm.
care about repeating the point. Now, I'm on a carnivore diet for 2 years. I don't bring it up every 5 minutes either. I'm perfectly fine as well.
Uh,
So everything's
It's a completely
perfect.
irrelevant thing to say.
No,
Do you have
no,
anything
okay,
relevant?
but wait. You brought that point multiple times. I'm on a vegan diet. It's everything perfect for me because it's well planned. Okay, I'm on a carnivore diet. It's well planned, and I have no problems either.
Are you confused as to why I'm bringing up veganism in a debate about veganism?
No. You bring up an anecdote multiple times to claim, yeah, and a well planned vegan diet works. So can I. A well planned carnivore diet works perfectly well because look at me.
Sure.
I'm a carnivore. Perfectly
I have
works.
also, you and I have both given anecdotal evidence. The difference is I am also giving evidence on, again, dozens of medical organizations and nutritional organizations and so on and so forth that all support that a vegan diet can be healthy and, in fact, improves health functions in a number of different areas. It is objectively true that it lowers rates of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes and different kinds of cancers.
Okay, it also leads to weaker bones and a shorter size.
If it is not well planned.
No, with supplements.
With supplements doesn't necessarily mean well planned.
Okay, so it's not well planned. Okay.
Right. So you're making arguments
When you
based
bring up
on
that point
poorly
all the
planned
time, then I
veganism.
can say that as well about the carnivore diet. We chase around in
No, because
circles.
you can't rely on supplements on a carnivore diet without conceding that you must rely on some plant-based solutions to your
Well, I
needs.
don't take any supplements.
Then
It's
you are
perfectly
probably
fine without.
deficient in some things.
No, I'm not.
Do you know that?
I sleep. Yes, I go to the doctor, in fact.
You've gotten the blood work and gotten all of that done and all your shit comes back normal? Because
Yeah.
the overwhelming consensus from all the studies, the ones that do exist, because there aren't many, show that they are consistently across the board deficient in several nutrients. Because there are some things
On
that are
the
just
I'm not
really difficult to
just
get from
talking.
plant animal
I'm not just
products.
talking about the deficiencies. I'm also talking about the actual outcomes and the general actual outcomes. Because yes, of course, when you have a totally different diet, you need different kinds of elements in your body to properly utilize them. That is
You don't
to be
have data on the
expected.
long-term outcomes because long-term data on carnivore diets doesn't exist.
I know they don't exist.
So how can you make the claim about long-term implications of a carnivore diet if the studies don't exist? Are you pulling
Well,
that
we
out
know
of
the
your
mechanism.
thumb, or are
We
you
do know,
citing something?
huh?
Are you citing a source when you say that? Is there something that you can send?
No,
Because
because there are no long-term studies. I know that myself, and I know that's a
correct.
huge problem. But
So
you
how can you make
can
the
blame me
claim?
for that.
I'm not blaming you for it. You're the one making a claim that
So
is not supported
the
by evidence.
best thing we have is indeed a survey. I know that. It's a survey of
Right.
2,000 individuals that have been asked, okay, have your various conditions improved significantly? And yes, the overwhelming majority, we talk about 80 to 90% in multiple categories, all say yes, have improved or completely resolved. Do you think that's an accident?
No, it's not an accident. But it doesn't prove what you think
Okay.
it does. The people who are
What does
going
it
on this
prove?
carnivore diet are doing so for any number of reasons, and it's a pretty extreme thing to do. So obviously, if they've chosen to do this, they're not going to self-report that they feel terrible because they have something to
Okay,
prove for this.
that
You're
claim
also,
the same
again,
about
only
veganism.
citing one subjective survey of about 2,000 people, and this is up against tens, if not hundreds of thousands of not only testimonies, but also studies over the last century. You have one
Okay, wait.
objective
No.
survey of 2,000 people.
No. Wait, you're making again. Now you're saying the long-term studies. We agree that the long-term studies don't exist. The best thing we have is this survey, and there is no counterpoint properly against the survey because there are no proper clinical trials about carnivore diets. We know that.
Okay, so you
Can't
are
really,
admitting that there is not evidence to support what you're claiming.
well,
I
there
appreciate
is
that.
the survey. That's the best thing that we have.
There's the
Yes.
survey. You're right. That survey exists.
Okay, but we have various
You have
studies
that
on
survey.
vegan diets and vegetarian diets that they do cause a lot of problems.
No, that those problems
Yes,
can.
among general populations do. Yes.
We have studies that show
Yes.
that those problems are more prevalent among folks who do not address their nutritional needs. But again, this debate is about whether a carnivore diet or a well-planned plant-based diet is superior. So if you're going to
Now,
point
well,
to the averages of people who don't meet all of their nutritional needs, who don't have the time to do all the research and have the money to do all the shopping that needs to be done and things like that. There are accessibility
Okay.
concerns with veganism. That's a different conversation.
Let's look into what plants are made of. In Brussels sprouts, for example, we have 136 identified human carcinogens. They cause cancer. You have the same in spinach, kale, lettuce, cabbage, cucumber, broccoli, and many others.
Are you claiming that
Literally
vegetables cause cancer?
every
You're
single
gonna have to
plant you
clarify
can
this.
find, every
Let
single
Gabe
plant that
finish.
you can find in a supermarket has at least a bare minimum of 60 known carcinogens. That is a fact.
You're going to have to cite that, because if your
I have the
claim
study here.
is that eating spinach and other leafy greens increases your risk of cancer, you're going to have to provide a source for that, because
I'm
the
saying that they have
overwhelming
these
majority
tons
of
of
professionals in
carcinogens. I
this field
posted.
would disagree with you.
Yeah, I posted a study here.
The one about dietary pesticides?
Yes, natural pesticides. Like this is about naturally occurring chemicals, not pesticides, as in that's what you spray on the plant.
This says that about half, 27, of the natural pesticides produced by plants to defend themselves are carcinogens to rodents.
Yeah, that's also to humans.
We conclude that natural and synthetic chemicals are equally likely to be positive in animal cancer tests.
We also conclude that at the low dose of most human exposure, the comparative hazard of synthetic pesticide residue are insignificant. Now
That
it's claimed
100% just completely dismantles that last sentence
no,
there.
Wait. Wait.
We
So,
conclude,
yeah,
hold on, let me read this again just to make sure it's clear. We
okay.
also conclude that at the low doses of most human exposures, the comparative hazards of synthetic pesticide residues are insignificant. So yes, there are trace elements that have been known to cause cancer in rodents. Sure. That says nothing about higher rates of cancer actually occurring in people who follow plant-based diets. And we have over a century of research on this. So if the studies
so some of these
existed,
carcinogens,
they'd be there.
they're not just causing cancer. That's not the only thing that I'm claiming. Like the things that are already named, like for example, oxalate, gliadin, protease. These things are also inhibitors of what I just claimed or already claimed of various
We've
of
been over
zinc,
the inhibitor thing.
huh?
We've already gone over the inhibition aspect of these.
Yeah, but that means you need to be very careful. You need to take a lot of supplements, and some supplements will be outright inefficient with certain foods when they're mixed with certain foods. And you didn't even know what oxalate is. How can you claim that your diet is well planned when you didn't even know about these particular chemicals, these components?
Do you think that it's impossible to plan a diet well if you don't know every single nutrient that your body needs?
Well, did you know
That
about
sounds like an
inhibitors?
impossible standard.
What did you know about
Just to let you guys know, we are at the 9-minute mark. You have 9 minutes left.
We have only also few. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So to retouch on the naturally, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying like the naturally occurring things in these different plants inhibit the absorption rate of necessary nutrients and therefore make a vegan diet insufficient
vitamins and
for meeting
minerals,
these needs.
Well, it will be very hard. It's not impossible. I'm not saying it's possible. Nothing is technically impossible, but it's much harder. And we see that, especially among women, that it is very hard and can cause serious problems, especially to the fetus. When we talk about weaker bones, a shorter size, less brain development, these sorts of things. That is a serious concern. We talk about over half of.
Do you have evidence that the presence of these inhibiting substances within plants are the contributing factor, are the causal factor of these deficiencies? because like I said, decades of studies, hundreds of thousands of people have shown that
I mean,
they can 100%
okay,
adequately meet their needs.
I mean, why would they be insufficient then when they take supplements? I mean, the inhibitor is the obvious reason for that.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
But, okay, so if we see people that take supplements still have iron deficiency, what would be the reason for that if not that there are inhibitors in the body that cause this iron deficiency? Now wait a second, I do have actual studies on this as well. Where is it? Effect on iron depletion. No. There we go. Oh no, that's what oxalate causes.
Stanford
Yeah,
medicine.
oxalate can
I'm
also
seeing
cause
Stanford
kidney damage.
medicine. We're looking at
Iron
iron in particular, ways to boost blood
Okay,
iron
we're
levels while
looking
eating
at iron
a vegetarian
deficiency.
diet. This is from Stanford. It shows a plethora of different ways to get a proper amount of iron. The inhibitors that you're talking about do not inhibit to the point of being prohibitively difficult to maintain a healthy vegan diet.
Well, for a lot of people, apparently it is. Now,
National
individual
Institute of
bodies.
Medicine.
There's also a biological, a genetic factor to this. Some people are actually better at absorbing these elements than others, because
So it
of
sounds like
genetic aspects.
there's more to this than the plant-based diet.
Yeah, but
Because now
the
you're bringing up things that have nothing to do with the plant-based diet. Sure, there are plenty of factors that can lead to a person having anemia.
yeah,
Can you show that following a plant-based diet necessarily increases your risk of anemia? Or is it a matter of people not getting enough iron because they're not planning well enough that leads to these deficiencies?
well, we don't
And
know the
again, it
exact
is
science
not
of every
prohibitively
single
difficult to
individual.
plant. They make
We don't know.
multivitamins for vegans that cover all of these things. You get fortified foods in plant milk. You get it in the Impossible and Beyond meats and those different substitutes. You do have to watch out for saturated fats and sodium with them, but they also provide a lot of these different nutrients that plant-based diets tend to need to be concerned about. But once again, the consensus is that it is reasonable and relatively simple to meet all of your nutritional needs on a plant-based diet.
I have paper
Any
here. Wait a
diet
second.
is going to have concerns, different nutrients that they need to address because they're deficient in one form or another, and most of them can make it happen.
Okay, we have here a paper on the effects of dietary fiber, in particular, on mineral availability, and it's significantly
So are you conceding the
lower.
iron thing?
Yes. No, I'm not.
So we're just
Fiber has a
moving on to
negative
fiber and not
impact.
addressing that.
A
We can
fiber
move
is
on to
from
fiber if you
vitamins.
want.
Okay,
If you don't want to address
also move on to fiber. I mean, we're talking about the availability of iron, right? Oxalate is
right.
mostly for
We got
zinc.
4 minutes left.
So we got that. Okay.
We can
I
move on to
also have
fiber if you want, but you're leaving the iron stuff on the table.
mineral availability. That is iron. Iron is a
Poses
mineral. You
challenges.
know that.
Non-heme iron, which is more abundant in plant-based sources, poses
Yeah.
challenges about its lower bioavailability, and this could contribute to an increased risk of anemia in these populations. However,
Yeah.
recent studies challenge this assumption, revealing a more complex relationship between plant-based nutrition and iron status. Additionally, emerging evidence suggests that the potential association between red meat consumption and cancer might be partially mediated by the high intake of heme iron. So
When you
there
have
is
too much
actually
iron,
emerging evidence. There's emerging evidence that the high intake of heme iron on red meat diets can actually can also cause an increased risk of cancer. So I don't
I
know if
know
that cancels
that's
out
why.
what you were talking
Okay.
about calcium,
Oh no,
but apparently
you
iron
can just
balances out in the opposite direction. So
okay. If you have too much iron, just get a phlebotomy. That's what I do.
a phlebotomy?
Yeah. blood removal, blood donation. You can reduce your iron content in your blood by simply doing a blood donation. It's good for society. You give some blood to other people and you reduce your iron levels. And that works very effectively. That's
I
all you need to
guess,
do.
sure. You
Yeah.
can literally siphon blood from your body to make your diet viable. I guess you can do that.
Yeah, okay, so this is very
But
important to
come on, if
understand.
you're going to
Because,
talk about
okay, no,
prohibitive,
wait, let me explain. So this is very important to understand because people back then, cavemen, the people who actually eat a lot of meat, they cut themselves a lot. So they didn't, they lost naturally a lot of blood. Women, for example, they can have much more iron. They don't have this big problem because they, bleed every few years, or every few months. I'm sorry, every few years, no, every few months. Yeah, blood loss does reduce your iron content in your blood, obviously, because you have less blood. So what you really need to do is simply remove this blood, because this natural ability to lose blood through cuts, through bruises, through these sorts of things just don't happen anymore in the 21st century, when we have all kinds of methods to prevent that.
Now, I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine the amount of blood you lose when you donate blood was not being lost in small cuts and stuff from natural living. And if somebody back then did lose that amount of blood, they might die. They probably would die.
Mm,
You can't
well, you don't
compare
need to make
phlebotomy
you
to
don't
like cuts just from moving around back in caveman times.
Well, these bruises
They're two very
happen
different.
okay, these bruises happen, and cuts and such. These happen like every
Well,
day
a
pretty much,
bruise
and
isn't
over a
leaking
long
blood.
time period.
We are at the
Like,
1
I
minute
don't go
mark.
at least like a little bit. It doesn't matter. Point is, over a very long time period, yes, you can indeed lose enough blood for that. Now, phlebotomy is you lose a lot of blood at once. These people then lost a lot of blood over a long time period, like every day a little bit, obviously.
I've
Like, you
not
don't need
heard
to
that.
lose
You'll
all
have
of
to
that
provide some
once.
evidence for that, to be honest.
But I do
That
have,
that
okay, point is you can
that
remove
cavemen
blood
cutting
through a
themselves in
phlebotomy.
the natural course of the day balanced their higher iron rates from eating so much meat. That sounds, I can't say for certain that it's not true, but it sounds pretty ridiculous to me.
Okay, well, I have a paper here, effect of iron depletion and carbohydrate clinical evidence.
Now, we only have 10 seconds, but if you want to,
Um,
since the Q&A is probably not going to be very long, I can extend the open dialogue for another 10 minutes, because I can tell you guys still have a lot to say. So if you want me to extend the timer by like 10 minutes, since the Q&A is not going to be very long, I can do that. It's up to you guys.
I'm good, but if Yang wants to extend, I'm happy to.
I'm also good. We can gladly extend. I don't particularly care. I do have
5 minutes. Can I extend it 5 minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
sure.
am
5
curious
minutes.
if you can find. I'm curious where you got this idea about cavemen getting cut throughout the normal course of
I
the
mean,
day, and therefore balancing out
they were
the
hunting,
iron
they were
issue.
fighting, they were like just rocks, like rocky terrain.
Or is
These
your
sort of
argument
things.
that seems like it might be true, or do you have any actual evidence?
I would need to look the evidence up again. But I do. But okay. But the point is, you can remove
Where did you learn
your
that?
iron content, huh?
Where did you learn that? Where did you hear that? That like because there is the idea of like phlebotomy for higher iron. That's a thing. Where did you hear
Yeah.
that like naturally back in the day they would lose enough blood to balance this out?
Seems like common sense to me.
Okay, so it was made up. All right, what's your next point?
No, it's not made up. Are you telling me people back then had bandages and stuff like that?
No, but if they lost that amount of blood, they would die
That amount of
because
blood over a long time period,
they
yes.
weren't sitting in a doctor's
Not
office
I'm
with
as I said,
college-trained
not at
professionals sticking
once.
sterile needles into their arms. They were getting
They're
skewered
they're
by
all,
boar.
okay. They're also like parasites and stuff, like really bad parasites. Leeches
Yes, there are
existed
things that
back
would
then.
cause cavemen to lose blood. Correct.
Yeah,
I see no
lots of
reason to
blood.
believe that it at all would
Now,
be in the amounts necessary to balance out the
uh,
issues with high iron intake, with excessive iron intake.
well, over a long time period. Like, you really don't need to do all of it at once.
Right,
Just
but
every day.
while you're losing the blood, you are also still consuming more meat. So
Okay,
you are
I
still
think
having
we
to deal with
really
that.
get off the topic. The point is that iron, high iron content, yes, can cause cancer. If you want to prevent that, lose blood. That's my point.
Okay, so the carnivore diet works as long as you siphon blood out of your body regularly.
Yeah,
Is that your argument?
yeah. Call my
My
blood donor.
point
That's
stands
my
that the
argument.
vegan diet is a superior diet. It does not require you siphoning your own blood in order to stay healthy.
Okay, do you agree that high fiber intake can cause gastrointestinal issues?
Yes, excessive fiber intake can cause gastrointestinal issues. So
Okay,
can
how do you
deficient
reduce
fiber intake,
how
because
do
there's
you
an
reduce your
optimal amount
fiber
of what our
intake?
body needs.
Okay, how do you reduce your fiber intake on a plant-based diet?
Eat less fiber.
Okay, what do you eat instead? Amounts of, like, significantly, because vegans have significantly higher fiber intakes. Like, even omnivores have this issue.
Fruits.
About 2
A lot of
minutes.
Low fiber
omnivores.
vegan foods, fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, etc. Avoid raw vegetables. They contain more fiber. You can remove the skin and seeds from the fruit and vegetables whenever possible. That'll greatly reduce the amount of fiber in these foods.
Okay, that's fair, yeah.
Mhm.
Still, we do have a problem, even among omnivores. We have a lot of people having too much fiber. Now, I would assume by default it is harder to do that on a carnivore diet, especially if you don't know what you're properly doing. And that doesn't seem to me make it easier. And your claim is that it is more accessible. Is that fair to say?
What is more accessible? Fiber on a
No,
plant-based diet?
a vegan diet that it's more
Vegan diet, I would
yeah,
say
more
it's a lot easier to meet all your nutritional needs on a vegan diet than it would be on a carnivore diet. Yes.
okay.
You've already conceded that part of meeting your
50
needs on a
seconds.
carnivore diet involves siphoning your own blood. So I would say that that's a pretty big
That is
barrier
not.
for entry.
No,
And
you
if you
don't
can't
have to do
donate
that.
blood, what happens if you can't donate blood? For any
You just
number
get
of
a
reasons.
phlebotomy without blood donation. You can still do it at a clinic. If you have high iron
Yeah, I guess
content, and
if
tell your doctor, yeah, I have a high iron content. Can you
that's the
remove
hill
the
you want
blood?
to die
You
on,
want to do that?
then yeah,
It's
sure.
not that hard. It's
30
really not that
seconds.
hard. 30 seconds.
All
Oh
right.
man.
Well, at the end of the day, just to reiterate my point, just about every single major medical health institution on the planet recommends a plant-based diet, recognizes the difficulties in meeting all your
10
nutritional
seconds.
needs, and it is well known how to meet those needs
All
and
right,
can be done with a far
and
lower
time.
barrier of
Okay.
entry than carnivore.
Okay, so now we are going to the Q&A, and this should be fast because there's only a few questions. So the first question, for Comrade Kohga, you mentioned all the benefits for the vegan diet, but what about the negatives regarding it? For example, I've heard somewhere that the vegan diet causes a huge decrease in intelligence, while having a pure meat-based diet actually improves your mental clarity.
I haven't seen anything about that. I've actually seen the opposite. Now, this is referencing a documentary. I don't know if I can source the study right now, but yeah, they did studies on. They had people eat a completely plant-based diet, and then had people eat like a normal diet, like a normal like chicken, whatever, and then had them take cognitive tests. The vegans performed better.
Yeah, do you have any response to that?
Maybe you're getting the information from like evolutionarily. The introduction of meat into our diets certainly helped kickstart brain development and evolution in that sense, but that was tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago. These days,
So
we're all pretty
Yeah.
much working with the same hardware.
Right, try to keep responses to
so
questions under a minute.
okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I do have to say something to that as well, because there is indeed evidence that generally, like, the size of the brain and even like the general skull structure is decreasing. We see that, for example, many people that develop crooked teeth that happen predominantly in agricultural societies that developed grains and various processed plant-based foods, and that does seem to correlate with a smaller brain, and yes, also lower brain development. We had the I mentioned that before, that fetus or like babies from vegan and vegetarian mothers do have less proper brain development, and it can have a negative impact because they are iron deficient, for example.
All right.
Just to
Yeah, we have to move on. Second, okay, so I think this is for both of you technically. So, for Koga and Yang, can we also mention that the studies from major health organizations are kind of leftist in nature and are pushing bullshit agendas? I don't really, yeah, just take whoever wants to take that question.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to engage with that. That's just saying, no, that's not. It's not an actual argument. Engage with the evidence, not the people presenting it. That's called a genetic fallacy and is not logical. Try again.
Do
So
we
yeah, oh, should
I do want to be fair to the person who asked the question. If there was like hundreds of studies out there, and there probably are from like a tobacco company that were funded by tobacco companies, and those studies were saying that smoking is actually good for you or doesn't have any serious health effects, would you question the integrity of those studies because of who's lobbying for them? Just to be fair to the person who asked that question.
I think as far as lobbying goes, you're going to have the animal agriculture industry is one of the most prolific lobbying industries in the world. The idea that like these major organizations are having massive amounts of funding and pushed into them to promote a vegan diet is absurd. It is actually the opposite, and you can find and it's similar to like you said with the tobacco situation or oil, like Exxon commissioning studies and stuff. But these organizations are not advocacy groups. They're not think tanks pushing out uh, results to push an agenda. These are scientists, and you can claim you can make an anti-science stance, but that largely is just conspiracy.
All right, yeah,
Conspiracy
you can
theory.
respond. You can respond there because I could tell you were trying to respond.
Um, I'm pretty confident that the big, like especially producers of carbohydrate-heavy foods, do lobby the government significantly more than meat industries. But I would need to look that up again. But I'm pretty sure that is the case. Otherwise, yeah, I would say that there is a problem with not just who funds it. I think the bigger problem is that many of these studies are very much based on a correlation causation fallacy, that they assume because well, people ate this particular food, therefore that's why they have developed cancer. For example, processed meats and meats in general claim to cause cancer. Much of that is based on how much did these people eat meat actually, but not how was the meat prepared, or what was it eaten with. For example, a hot dog which is eaten with like bread around it, and then you put also ketchup on top and whatever. Of course, that is not just meat, and there come lots of other foods into place. A huge problem, that a huge another huge point that plays into that is, for example, seed oils, vegetable oils, especially cheap vegetable oils. Olive oil is good. I'm not saying anything about olive oil. Olive oil perfect, but like
We
sunflower
have
oil, for
to
example.
we have to move on.
Yeah.
Koga, what do you make of Nikocado Avocado's attempt at a vegan diet? He argues that he had to quit being vegan because a plant-based diet is not sufficient for a healthy lifestyle, citing his own health outcomes while he was on a vegan diet, and argues that meat is a more reliable method for absorbing vitamins and nutrients.
Meat can be more reliable. It is no secret that a lot of the nutrients that we've discussed are more bioavailable and are better or more easily absorbed from animal products. That doesn't mean that it is prohibitively difficult to achieve that on a plant-based diet. I don't know Nico Avocado, I think you said. I don't know his story or what's up with him. But his personal testimony against, again, I don't mean to like beat a dead horse, but over a century of dozens of organizations, hundreds of thousands of participants, all of that. It's his word and his own personal testimony against all of that.
Yang?
The question was also to me. What was the
Oh no,
question
you can
again?
just
I'm
respond.
sorry.
You can just respond.
Okay. Um, I'm sorry. I was totally distracted by reading the chat myself right now.
If you don't want to respond, that's completely fine.
Yeah. Okay. Then I don't respond. I'm sorry.
No worries. This is more of a silly question. Yang, do you sometimes ever cheat and have something that is plant-based, even if doing so may not be that impactful in the grand scheme of things?
Okay, yeah. When it's not that impactful in the grand scheme of things, yeah, I do have a birthday where I eat a cake, for example, or on when I'm like invited somewhere and they simply have like a food variety. Then of course I cheat. It doesn't happen that often. It's kind of like drinking alcohol. I'm non-drinker. I drink barely any time, but so very rarely to specific events, for example, I do eat and drink these sorts of things as well. Or when I'm just really, really lazy, and then I also go to Chick-fil-A and get something that isn't particularly healthy and has a bit of carbohydrates, but it's very rare.
Do you have any response to that, Koga?
I've been vegan for a couple of years now and have not once cheated on veganism. There have been times where I've accidentally consumed something that might have had an animal product in it, but I have never once made the choice to go back on what I've done.
All right, we have another question for Yang. Are you basically advocating for people who can't donate blood to cut themselves to decrease iron?
No, you can get a phlebotomy even without blood donations. That's a medical practice for people with high iron content. That is a known a used medical practice to this day. It's like one of the oldest. It's used since ancient Egypt. Okay, back then they used leeches and shit. That's not good. I'm not saying get leeches. It comes with bacteria and all kinds of other pathogens. Don't do that. Please go to the clinic or a hospital and just get a fucking phlebotomy. It's not that difficult.
I don't know
Koga?
if you have free healthcare. I don't know if you have free healthcare in Germany. I think you do. But in America,
No, I moved
that's
to America.
probably not going to be. Huh?
I live in the United States. I moved here.
Okay, got you. Yeah, so healthcare can be pretty prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. So I would at least, have that consideration as far as the feasibility of a carnivore diet, if that's one of their requirements.
All right, and we have one more question. Can either of you eat shrooms? Would you advocate for fungal diet supremacy?
I eat shrooms all the time. Uh, I love mushrooms. They're really good at meeting a lot of these nutritional needs. Um, yeah, I love mushrooms. The psychedelic variety is pretty damn fun too.
What about you, Yang? Would you at least even concede that mushrooms have their place?
No.
I
I don't
Technically, it's not a
particularly
plant,
like
it's a fungus.
mushrooms.
I wonder if there actually is something like that. Maybe we can look into that after the
I don't
debate.
know.
But like,
I'm pretty sure it's people on a keto diet do probably eat mushrooms.
well, no. I was saying like I get the feeling that there's someone out there because there's fruitarians, right? There's fruitarians who argue that you should only eat like certain plants because plants can suffer too. Like they take veganism to an extreme. I think Steve Jobs was that.
Absolutely.
So imagine like a
Believe
fung.
I do in that.
Yeah, so imagine like a fungist, like someone who only eats fungal foods. I'm sure someone like that exists. I'll have to look into that. Anyway, I think that wraps up the Q&A. There wasn't that much, so I guess we will go into the 5-minute closing statements, starting with Yang. The floor is yours for the taking.
Oh my god. Closing statement. I did not prepare. I literally didn't prepare anything at all. So yeah. My point stands that on overall, yes, of course, if the individual vegetarian or vegan can probably meet all requirements if they put a lot of effort into it, or are particularly genetically prone to it, or alternatively just have luck. But overall, the average on does have a lot of problems. It comes with depression, it comes with anxiety, it comes with various iron deficiencies, mineral deficiencies in general, like zinc and magnesium as well, and calcium, etc., etc. a lot of vitamins you don't get from plant-based foods properly. You need to convert them first. A good example is vitamin K, which you need to convert from carotene. Was it K or was it A? It doesn't matter. Would need to look that up again. But generally speaking, when you are on a carnivore diet, you pretty much get everything you need from the food that an animal provides. Like the general rule is, from head to tail, eat pretty much everything every now and then, and variety as well. Like eat fish, eat a lot of eggs. Like eggs is a substantial part of this, but also drinking milk. But when you do that, you could pretty much cover everything. You don't even need to be particularly selective about it. The general rule is eat till you're not hungry anymore, and that's it. It's not that complicated. Yes, the biggest problem one might bring up is the phlebotomy, but I think it's not that big of a deal. You can in fact get a phlebotomy in the United States for around 20, even 30 or $50. Otherwise, blood donation, which is pretty much open for the vast majority of people. Okay, that's it. That's my last statement.
All right, and Koga, you have the last word with your 5-minute closing statement.
Yeah, I also didn't prepare a whole lot, but I don't think I really need to. I think it's clear the evidence does speak for itself. And with the quality of evidence presented by my opponent, I think it's pretty clear which side has the actual scientific and medical community behind it. The things that he mentioned don't address a well-planned diet. They address poorly planned diets and averages based on people, studies done over, people who are not planning their diets well. That also doesn't do anything to cancel out all of the issues with the carnivore diet that we've discussed. The nutritional deficiencies that are very difficult to make up for without supplementing, at least in some plant-based way. The increased risk of heart disease, the increased risk of all these different cancers, and the superiority of the plant-based diet in reducing these things. And it's not just me saying that, it is, as I'll say for the last time, dozens and dozens of medical organizations, nutritional organizations, dietary organizations, thousands and thousands of professionals over the last century have all concluded that a plant-based diet, when well planned, adequately meets your nutritional needs, and it is not prohibitively difficult the same way it would be to have to schedule a phlebotomy appointment regularly. Not even if the payment aspect isn't an impossible hurdle. That's a big ask for a lot of people to go and sit down and donate blood like that regularly. Uh, so I think it's just prohibitive. And at the end of the day, my original claim of a vegan diet being superior to a carnivore diet, I think speaks for itself.
All right, well, and that concludes Carnivore Diet on Trial. I appreciate everyone who tuned in or watched this after being uploaded to YouTube. I hope you hit that like button and subscribe for future debates. I wish our audience and our guests a blessed night. Thank you.